Good morning. I decided to see the light of day this time. There will be no more dancing videos, don't worry. Katie and Bert are in Florida and I'm in Colorado, so that's over. This morning I want to talk about free will because, because I found that I had written that down somewhere and I was like, that's a good idea, that's a really fascinating topic. And it's interesting because free will is something that is debated in different circles as to whether it's like a real thing or not. And I've heard people say that free will is, an illusion, and I was raised believing in it. And I now actually, once I began DNRS, after my first 4 months of insane focus and absolute bliss for 4 months straight, I realized that free will is a very real thing. But it's not, I've never heard it defined the way I've experienced it. And it's really important if you want to be free. And that's like the point of everything I do, is to be free and to help other people follow me into freedom, or open the door for them to the freedom. So if freedom's where it's at. So it is definitely a both and. One of the things that's really important to understand about being human is that we run, unless awareness is brought to it, we run about 95% on subconscious programming. Like what we absorbed as children. I don't know if I've talked about mirror neurons before, but mirror neurons are a phenomenon that mean that when you watch someone else doing anything, having an experience, your brain will automatically fire in the exact same areas that the person you're watching is firing in. So that's how we absorb beliefs as children. That's how that works. When we're children, we watch our parents, and that's how, I don't know if anyone watching has realized that when you are a child, you absorb, it just seems like osmosis. Like you realize that maybe your parents never said anything about a particular topic, but then as an adult, you're like, but clearly I'm running on this very, in your face, kind of blatant, obvious belief about something, even though my parents never said a word about this topic. But your brain, your limbic brain, is really good at picking up on people's body language, their facial expressions, their tone of voice, and that's where your beliefs about life are expressed. One small example, my father is where I got a lot of my limbic beliefs from, and anytime something didn't go his way, he would be like, well, that was such a waste of time. Like, why did I even try? What's the point of even trying if everything's not going to go my way the first time? And I picked that belief up. I don't have it anymore, but that was something I picked up, and I picked it up very young. And by the time I was conscious of it, I already had that same program running inside of me. So when he would say something like that, I was already thinking it. I just got it from watching him. There was never any your parents don't sit you down and teach you all these things. You just absorb it from them. So you're about 95% of your life is run on that subconscious programming. And that's not free will, obviously. If you're just, it takes effort and awareness, at least effort. It takes effort and awareness to really access free will. And that can happen one of two ways. Either you can find, for me, I found out that free will was a thing because I was watching the DVDs, the DNRS DVDs, and Annie was like, you can focus on anything in this room. You don't have to focus on the sensations in your body. You can, she asked everyone in the room, how many times do you see the color red in this room? And everyone forgot about everything except how many times they saw the color red. They were just searching for that for a minute and forgot about everything else. They forgot that they were in a body and forgot about all their symptoms and their problems, and they just forgot about everything because they were counting how many red things they could find in the room. And I just took that so literally. I took it so far and so wide. And that's how I got my life back, though. So it was I discovered that I learned it, and then I went and just exercised it, and I focused so intensely on exactly what I wanted in every moment that I basically then became me, because I focused on the sky and the trees and the rays of light coming in the window instead of my body, and that became my reality. But you can stumble upon this by accident. I'm absolutely certain there are people out there who just realize that when they're in a certain activity or something, they're so in it that they forget about everything else, and they can kind of instinctually use that to their advantage in life. And this is something that comes up a lot with DNRS, where people say, how do I how do I do this thing because my symptoms are distracting me? And it's a matter of focusing so much and using your emotional focus to focus on, because the limbic brain works in terms of, it's very focused on sensation. It's in its kind of unruly state. It's very, or in general, I mean, it's focused on sensation, and you want to get your brain focused on the sensations that you care about, and that's what it means to focus, like to follow your heart, is to focus on the sensation of joy in your heart so intensely that you don't feel anything else, and everything else doesn't exist anymore. That's how that works. When it comes to patterns in life, and this is where, again, I mean, free will is a beautiful, and it's a very radical thing. When you have perhaps patterns in relationships that you've perpetuated unknowingly over a lifetime, you only ever have one kind of relationship with other people. If you were given kind of a faulty foundation of how to connect with people, and you only connect with people based on, emotional manipulation or trading, kind of using their responses to you as your self-worth or something like that, that's how you're just going to that's all your brain knows how to do. So it's going to have that kind of connection with everyone in your life. Free will means, and in this case, it takes actively seeking out a different option, actively becoming aware in your mind that there's another way to live life, believing it. And this again starts with kind of having faith that there is another option. And once you believe that there's another way to do things than the way you've been doing things your whole life, you have the ability to seek out making that possible. But it's a matter of using your free will to focus on something different in every situation. Again, for me, it's all come down to following my heart instead of allowing my brain to loop in patterns about. I mean, one of the biggest ones with this has been my marriage, like what my husband thinks of me or something. Instead of thinking about that, I listen to my heart and I take that attention back from, because focused attention is key here. Like that is one of the principles of brain rewiring, is that it requires a lot of emotionally focused attention. And when you emotionally focus your attention on your heart and on what's bringing you joy in that moment, and I mean, I use music a lot as a mood elevator, but depending on what kind of makes you tick, like there have been times where at the very beginning of my recovery, I would literally stare out the window every time I had to talk to my husband because he was one of my biggest triggers at the time and I couldn't look at him. But we had to talk because we had 5 kids and we had to talk. So I would stare out the window at the trees and like glance his way every now and then and kind of be able to have the conversation so that I wasn't being triggered. Because one of the things too is once your brain is in a panic state, you cannot use your prefrontal cortex anymore. You can't think straight. You literally cannot, like it's a do-it-yourself lobotomy. You can't think. You can't use your higher functioning brain at all. So it's really important to keep yourself calm in order to access your free will and to be able to see that there's another option of doing things aside from whatever your brain is used to in the past. So we have that choice in every moment of what are we listening to is really what it comes down to. And free will is, what are you listening to? Are you listening to the repeated circular patterns in your brain that may have been there for anywhere from 10 to 60 years? Or are you realizing there's something else you can listen to? There is a silence, there is a peace in your heart, there is beauty all around us. I mean, one occasion, one way I rewired around this was I was even recently having a difficult conversation with my husband, and I was determined to find a way to not be triggered by it. So I was like looking at the light and the way the light was literally coming in from the hallway and the way it was shining on the door and the way that that lamp over there just was like glowing so beautifully, and it was dark except for the lamp, and there's just this beautiful. So in a sense, I mean, it was kind of understanding we have free will, internally stepping out of the conversation long enough to just absorb the beauty of this glowing lamp in the darkness, and then come back to the conversation from a place of peace, and do that as many times as necessary. And then the beauty of neuroplasticity is that as you do that, whatever the situation is, whether you were rewiring around driving in a car or using chemical products or having PTSD around a particular building or location or person, it's a matter of understanding that in every single moment, you can choose what you focus on. You can choose, and it can feel like you are like holding a boulder over your head is kind of what it feels like a lot of times, because there's a lot of, the brain pulls very hard to that familiar pathway. It thinks it's keeping you alive by putting you in panic mode. It's not. It's just keeping you in panic mode. And so when you lift that boulder over your head, you understand that pattern's not keeping you safe. It takes a lot of effort, but you have the freedom. You have the free will to focus your attention elsewhere. And if you do that consistently throughout those situations, again and again and again, your brain automatically, like the pathway you're not using dies, and you've built a new road and a new highway in your brain. And now you automatically focus on what is beautiful all the time, and you're not triggered anymore by anything. And it's beautiful because we can wire in these new beliefs. This is how, like, when I coach people, I focus on core beliefs because it's so powerful. But this is how we do it. You look at what's the pattern that's there, and then you use your free will to see what are the other choices available. What are other things you could believe about yourself or a situation that would empower you and give you more freedom to live a life that is in line with your dignity as a human person, and your freedom as a human person, and your purpose here on earth, and see yourself in kind of the light of God instead of society or your spouse or your old beliefs in your brain or whatnot. There's always another option. So free will is a real thing, but it takes, and for me, this has been a literally moment to moment to moment thing over the course. It's been, in February, I will have been doing this for 3 years. And it has taken that much because my entire life was built on lies. My entire life, everything about everything, my relationship with food, my relationship with my body, with other people, with God, with movement, and just work. Like, there was not one thing in my life that had a solid foundation under it. So it's taken 3 years of literally moment to moment to moment focus on following my heart to get to a place where my life actually is normal and it runs properly and it's healthy and I'm healthy and I'm a person and I'm free, you know, and I still exercise that every day. But free will is a radical thing. It requires a lot of effort and a lot of focus, because when you realize it's a matter of taking that 95% of your brain that's running on subconscious programming and making it all programming of your choice. Your brain's always going to be running 95% on subconscious programming, but the key is you get to choose what the subconscious programming is. You get to choose what you believe. And then you get to choose to live it out moment by moment by moment by moment until that belief clicks and it doesn't take effort anymore. And it can take months. But then you're free for the rest of your life and you get to live. There is just nothing so sweet as living. There's a beautiful quote by a man named Joseph Campbell, and I don't know who he is, but it resonates very deeply, that so often we're focused on these outward things, but what it's all about is just the rapture associated with being alive. And that is what I have discovered, is literally that's it. I mean, everything else comes from that. That is the pinnacle, that is the purpose. It's just this rapture, this overwhelming awe and gratitude and wonder and love of just being alive in this world. And we get back to that place. That's freedom, and that's why it's worth it. No matter how much it takes, how much effort it takes to get there, it's so much more than worth it. So that is free will. You can choose what programs your brain is running, consciously wire them in, and then you can effortlessly live your life in freedom, be doing all the good you long to do, receiving all the love you long to receive, giving all the love you long to give, creating all the amazing things you want to create. Every single one of us is a creative genius of our own kind, and there's a whole lot of gifts the world is waiting to receive from you. So I hope you pick up your free will and use it to create something amazing. Much love to you, my brother.